Hi everyone, I'm Dax Carlisle.
And I'm Susanne Warnett.
And this is Tarot Insider. Welcome. I'm glad you all joined us today. If you're joining us live and you're in the chat room, remember you can open the chat room. Just move your cursor to the bottom there and you can open the chat. And also click on participants, see everybody else. You can raise your hand if you have a question or a comment. Today's show is about reversals. To reverse or not, that is the question.
That is the question.
Yeah. So I'm looking in the chat now, and I'd love to see. Do any of you use reversals when you read tarot, or do you specifically not use reversals, or sometimes? And also give us your ideas on how to read reversals. That would be really cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to mention in case folks are watching this in archive is that, you can join us via your telephone as well. We used to be on Blog Talk Radio and people were used to calling in via the phone lines. Well, you can do that in this show too. Some people might, I don't know, not be used to the Zoom platform. They're worried about going on cam. You don't.
DJs, we know your secrets.
Yes. Well, you don't have to go on camera. You can just come on via microphone. You click the little raise the hand. We know you want to be live with us, and you can chat with us. You can talk about the topic, like reversals today, or maybe you want a mini reading. I don't think we've done any mini readings since we started the new show, Susanne.
No, we haven't. We've been quite busy with topics, so I think we ought to get some mini readings under our belt again.
Mm-hmm. Not that I'm complaining. We've been doing guests and really cool topics, so but everybody's getting used to the technology, so people a little trepidatious about coming on. So you can come on via cam and mic or just mic, and you can also call into the show. And the telephone numbers, there's a couple of U.S. numbers, and then there's an ID you put in for the show. And all that information is on the posts that we do. And on the day of the show, I always post the phone numbers and the ID so you can call in. Maybe you don't have time or can't do the app. Like you might be driving down the highway and you can't really do the app. And if you're driving, we don't want you looking at us on camera. We want you looking at the road, right?
Absolutely. Safety first.
In my car, I've got the handy dandy, what do they call that?
Bluetooth hands-free thing.
Yeah, the Bluetooth hands-free thing. So, you can just dial into the show, put in the code, and then head happily, merrily down the road, and you can still come on and ask a question, get a mini reading, chat about the topic, chat with the guest if we have a guest on. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to do a guest every other week. And that's kind of how it's been happening. Our next guest, though, we had a schedule 2 weeks from today, so we're doing 2 topics in a row. So before we get to the topic today, hey, Susanne, why don't we talk about what's upcoming? First of all, I'm going to let everybody know what we've done so far. Can you believe it's the fifth show already?
I know, it's so cool.
I know. I thought, oh my God, it's going to be months before we, and it's like our YouTube channel's filling up already. Well, and that's another thing. You can always go to tarotguild.org, and in our blog, you'll find our shows. Also, there's actually a link for Tarot Insider, a button at the top of the website. Just click Tarot Insider, and on that page is a link that takes you to just the shows. You want to see what's the upcoming shows, what's the past shows, and you can watch us in archive there. You can also go to our Tarot Insider page on Facebook, facebook.com/Tarot Insider. Come and give us a like, and on the, let's see, they moved all the buttons in the Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook keeps changing things. It's on the left-hand side and up, and you'll see, you know, about us and everything. And there's a YouTube link, and you click that, and you stay right on our Tarot Insider page. But there's all of our shows on YouTube on our page. Yeah. And you'll also be able to find them, of course, on our groups and things like that. Our main group, the easy way to get there is tarotguild.org/Facebook. We have almost 5,000 members. Or if you're on Facebook, just search Tarot Guild, but make sure you look for the group. I think there's an old page on there, but I'm not sure. But you want to find the group. You'll know because it's almost 5,000 members. So that's the one we're talking about. So that's how you can listen to the show. And we had our premiere episode May 2nd and talked about us a little bit and the show and, you know, what we're going to be doing. And then May 9th, we had Janet Boyer talking about her new book, Naked Tarot, and a lot of other things. And boy, that was a fun show.
That was so fun.
Oh my gosh. And then we talked about tarot myth. I can't talk today. More coffee, folks. Tarot myths and mysteries. That was May 16th. And, you know, we talked a lot about the different myths about the deck and using the deck and things like that. We didn't really get to the mysteries very much, so we wanted to cover that on today's show as well. And then on the 23rd, last week, we had Cooch and Victor Daniels talking about their new book, Tarot at a Crossroads. Also, their chakra. I don't have the chakra book here. I can't hold it up. But I do have Tarot at a Crossroads. And it was, am I covering? Oh, here we go. Tarot at a Crossroads, and it's a hardcover. This is a great hardcover book. You want it? I don't know if they're ever going to do paperback, but I really like the hardcover. And of course, you know, Victor and Cooch are a hoot too.
Yes, they were fantastic.
And it was just so much fun. Oh my God! And you know, Cooch gets a little wild. That's what we love about Cooch, right? And that's why they're the ones that did, you know, Tarot d'Amour.
Yeah, exactly.
One of their first collaborations together. Yeah. So all that's in archive, and you can go listen to it right now. So what do we got coming up in upcoming weeks here, Susanne?
Well, we've got a busy few weeks coming up for June. Because I can't believe we're already pretty much into June now. It's
my birthday's coming up. Don't remind me. June 16th.
You'll be 21 again, Dax. It'll be absolutely fine.
Oh, yeah.
So for June, those of you who have been doing the Tarot by the Numbers course, or if you did the old Angelic Numerology and Tarot course that Dax was offering, we've got our first live class coming up. That's on June the 1st. And then on June the 6th, which is our regular show, we've got the topic there is what deck to get. Because if you're new to tarot, there are hundreds of thousands of decks out there. So many different topics. And really what we're going to go into is what to look out for when you're picking a deck. Not just which one looks prettiest, but all the practical considerations as well. Then on June the 7th, we have an exclusive class for our members with Janet Boyer, who we had on a couple of weeks ago on May the 9th. If you saw that show, she is just hysterical, but she is such a font of knowledge.
Absolutely.
She's published decks, she's written books, she's a fantastic reviewer as well, so if getting into reviewing is something that you want to do, she has so much knowledge there. But pretty much she has said, you can ask me anything for that show. Be warned, we will be. Then on the 13th of June.
Oh, hold on. We had a technical glitch there.
There we go.
Sorry, the sound went out for just a second, so we'll start over. Oh, before we do that, so let me just throw in that Janet is a Hall of Fame Amazon reviewer. What that means is, I mean, she's literally in like the top 50 reviewers out of the hundreds of millions of people on Amazon doing reviews. As you mentioned, writer, author, deck creator, publisher, you know, any questions you have about writing, publishing. She's also a copy editor and an editor and a copywriter. So any questions about editing, any questions about writing, any questions about publishing, creating and publishing and marketing a deck, becoming an author. And then there's the subject of tarot. Anything at all about tarot. She's a certified tarot master by the Tarot Guild. And with, you know, what? I don't think I ever asked her, but it's got to be like 20, 30 years experience.
She started when she was a baby, obviously.
Like us. Yeah. So, so what's really cool about this interview, we did the interview with Janet, you know, here on the TV show, but this is different because this is in a more intimate setting. It's not just me and Suzanne and Janet up here. All of you will be able to be up here with your cameras on, and or not if you don't want to have your cameras. I don't want to scare people away. You know, you don't have to turn your camera on. You know, but it will show all the participants, and it's an intimate, private setting, and you can ask Janet anything. That's what we're calling the interview. Ask Janet anything, and we're going to have a series of these kind of interviews with all the guests that we're having on, and even guests that we don't have on here on Tarot Insider. We'll still do private interviews with them, and these are exclusive interviews just for the Tarot Guild members. So to join us, you need to go over, and if you haven't joined the Guild yet, go over and join the Guild. It's the cost of a couple of lattes a month, and you get our Tarot Insider course. You get all of our free classes that we've done since 2010, and we're revisiting, Suzanne and I, and also I talked to Janet, and we're going to revisit all the topics that we did that are in the archive and bring everything up to date.
Yeah.
And workshops, new workshops, and then also these exclusive interviews, which is great. You get to pick the brain, which, you know, on a radio show or a TV show, it's much more limited. You know, the time you have, what you can ask, things like that. This is private, so you can pick their brains, literally these experts. So go over to tarotguild.org/join. And I think Suzanne's going to type that. I think I see her typing. Type that into the chat room for the people joining us live. tarotguild.org/join. tarotguild.org.
Make sure I spelled it properly. There we go.
Yeah, there it is. Yes. And it's just $9.97 a month. It's like the cost of a couple of lattes a month. Now, there is another option you'll see on the page, and that is to join annually. There's no difference between the annual membership and the monthly membership, except that the annual membership saves you 35% off the cost of the monthly. So it's $41. You save $41 if you get the annual membership, and it's $78. Obviously, the number of cards in the tarot deck, just $78. You know, versus paying $9.97 a month, you know, for 12 months. Obviously, you're saving a lot that way. And I know there's some people that, you know, really hate monthly payments, and so they just want to pay an annual fee. And a lot of professional organizations, that's the way they do it anyway. You know, whether it's the AMA or your hypnotherapy organization or the American Dental Association, or whatever professional organization a professional belongs to, you know, you're going to pay an annual fee, usually in the hundreds of dollars. I know because I'm a member of several. And so we had that option at the Guild, but then, you know, there's some people that, oh, wow, you know, that's putting out a lot of money at once. Well, you know, big chunk of money. Well, you have the monthly option as well. It's $9.97 a month. tarotguild.org/join. And then you're going to be able to join us for, you know, Janet's private interview. and all the upcoming ones we have. And as Susanne mentioned, we're starting Tarot by the Numbers this Thursday live. So all the classes are going to be live. Just like this in Zoom, only to be classroom style, and you'll all be able to join us and everything like that, and join in and so forth. Okay, so that was, where are we here? June 1st.
So that was up to June 7th.
We're up to June 7th.
So just real quick then, June the 1st, we have class number 1, our live video class with Tarot by the Numbers. June the 6th, we're looking at what deck to get. June the 7th is Ask Janet Boyer Anything. Be afraid, people. June the 13th is going to be a really interesting show because we're going to be chatting to the author Gwen Womack about her new book that's due out on the 6th, which is called The Fortune Teller. And I have my copy right here. I've just finished it. What's great about that is it's a fiction book that centers around tarot. Have you got your copy there, Dax?
Mine looks different on camera, but...
Yeah, yours is a different cover to mine.
You know what I think it is because it's a advanced copy, and you got, I think, the actual, what it's going to look like.
It might be. It might be, yes. So that's June the 13th. June the 20th, because we're up to Litha and Midsummer, we're going to be doing a little break from tarot, going back to our roots with numerology. We're going to be reassessing the world's year number and what that means for all of us and where we are in the cycle. Mm-hmm. And then June the 27th, we have Maria Mass, who you will all know from Angel Practitioners and the Tarot Guild, and we all go way back. She's going to be chatting to us live on June the 27th. And then July the 8th is International Tarot Day. We've got loads of stuff lined up for that massive broadcast, but we will tell you more about that a little bit nearer the time.
Surprise!
So that's what's coming up in June.
Oh, and just to give them an advance heads up, you know, we have a laundry list of fantastic guests. Oh my God, I'm so excited. But we don't have them all booked, you know, and so
if they're not confirmed.
Yeah, we don't want to announce it unless they've confirmed the date with us. But we just got a confirmation. Kathy McClellan. I can never say her name.
Yeah, she's this fantastic artist, and she's got a deck coming out at the end of July, the Star Tarot. She's going to be coming on August the 8th to talk about that as well. We'll put all the links on our Facebook page, and there'll be blog posts on tarotguild.org as well, so that you know what's coming up. But there's so many names that I've contacted and haven't confirmed a definite date. I'm so excited and I want to say it, but I don't want to jinx it.
And it's actually a fun thing for me too, because Susanne is our vice president in charge of industry relations. So she tells me.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you're interviewing so-and-so on such and such a day.
I know. It's such a surprise to me because, you know, she's doing everything behind the scenes and I don't know. Oh, okay. You know. Great stuff. Oh, it's gonna be so fun in the summer here, and you know, some people take a break, and especially if they're in school. And I'm hoping, you know, a lot of people will be able to join us. So, Ruth put something in the chat, and I thought we'd go to that first before we get into the topics. Ruth said, "I had the Empress card show up in a reading yesterday, and I felt intuitively guided to ask if the client had issues of self-nurturing and self-care. I hope that makes sense."
Absolutely does. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about reversals and whether you reverse. Ruth said she tends to use reversals when she has a yes or no question.
Oh, yeah.
I consider reversed cards if I feel that based on the cards, the client might have an issue with that internally, and she uses it to distinguish those sort of suppressed internal emotions. And I really like that. I mean, we've often discussed reversals, and I know that neither of us really use them, but they do have their place. And particularly when you're starting out in tarot, whenever you buy, and I'm bound to have one here. Yeah, here we go. So whenever you buy a deck and you get your little white book, they've always got the upright and the reversed meanings. So,
you know what I like, Suzanne, is when the white book separates it out and has the reversal meanings towards the back. I just grab that part and go rip, throw it away. Yeah. I don't use reversals, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
About why and so forth. But before we go into reversals, I wanted to just briefly bring up about tarot myths and mysteries. So we were talking about all the mythology, like you have to keep your tarot deck in a silk lined pouch, preferably black, so it reflects the energy, and we're going on. And yes, I do keep my tarot deck in a silk lined pouch, but it's a practicality reason. And when we went through all that laundry list of mythologies, that's basically what we found, is that there's practical reasons behind all these. Like, if you do keep your deck in a pouch like that, you're protecting your tools of your profession.
Yeah.
They should be respected and protected. Same thing if you put it in in your pouch and then put it in a wooden box, for instance.
Box. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like a chef would use a roll for storing their knives, and a mechanic would use a toolbox. It's about protecting your tools, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there's the myth about you need to be gifted your first deck of tarot, or every deck, or it varies depending on who you talk to, what the myth is. And it's a total myth. But if you do receive a deck from, say, your significant other, mom and dad, your kids, a best friend, something like that, you're going to form a stronger attachment to the deck. You're going to also revere the deck and want to protect the deck because it was a gift, right?
Exactly.
So there's a...
Also, when, back in the day before big publishing houses and the internet and everything, you would have learnt the tarot from somebody. And so your, as in many trades, your first tools would have been given to you as shit, really, even though it wasn't recognized. But, if you're going to be learning the tarot from somebody, you go back to sort of Tudor times of the Renaissance.
When it was more of an apprenticeship.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have just been able to go to your local W.H. Smith's or Barnes & Noble or something.
Amazon.com.
Amazon.com, exactly. So you would have got them from specific stores. There might be one near you. So when you were learning a skill like this, whoever was teaching you would often give you one of their decks, or would like to get one from, and would take you along to purchase your own. And it's that's simply where it's come from. But suddenly now it's this myth that if you buy your own deck, they're never going to work for you, and you're never going to.
And the other thing is, the further back in time you go, the more expensive the decks were.
Yes.
Originally, they were hand created before the printing press, and it was only royalty could afford them, because you had to commission an artist and they had to be hand painted.
Yeah.
Then the printing press came along and made them more accessible, and that was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But even more recently, the farther back you go back, just in over decades, the more recent decades, they were more and more expensive. Now they're down to, there's some decks you can find for $5, but a deck used to cost $50 or $100 before that. It all depends on the quality of the deck, the artist, what type of edition it is. Is it an artist edition, limited run, things like that. But nowadays with Amazon, it's like, boom, I have Amazon Prime. I can buy a deck for $10 or $15 and it's there in 2 days or the next day or the same day now. They have
same day,
here in Arizona, they have same day. And it's just changed, but you know, the mythologies are taking longer to change. Well, then there's even other things that go way back, and that's the mysteries surrounding the deck. And so with myths and mysteries, that's the mystery part. And everything from, you know, where did the deck come from and the creation of the deck, why it was created, all those kinds of things are what I'm talking about as far as mysteries. And folks in the chat room, if you have any favorite mysteries or favorite myths about how the deck was created or things like that, you know, pop them into the chat there. Susanne, what about you? What have you heard, and what's some of your favorite ones? Can you think?
Well, I mean, the earliest known tarot deck recognizable in its form is the Visconti deck. And I mean, talk about, I would sell several of my own body organs just to get a look at one of those original decks. They're hand painted, hand gilded with gold leaf and silver foil.
Well, I have something on that, Susanne. You're moving back to the UK shortly, and I think a lot of them are in the London Museum.
The British Museum, yes. The British Museum does apparently have a copy. So
you'll have to go and take pictures.
I'll take pictures, or I'll sit there and see if I can do sneaky, like, Facebook Live or something. Yeah, it would be absolutely awesome. Yeah, that's
early 1400s.
Prior to that, there's no evidence of anything actually resembling a tarot deck. Mm-hmm. There are certain things that made them sort of more popular, the advent of the printing press, and that sort of thing. Suddenly, they were a bit more accessible to everybody else. But we know that you know, oracles have been used way back into antiquity. And I just love the idea of these archetypal images just stretching out in one form or the other.
Yes.
And sort of, I say congeals, that's a really unattractive word, until it sort of coalesced into this sort of this major arcana that we know. Mm-hmm. And of course, playing cards and the minor arcana are kind of sisters, aren't they? You used to play parlor games with the early tarot cards. They weren't necessarily for divination. They were more parlor games, and you would play sort of gin rummy or bridge or whatever. Yeah, so I suddenly run out of card games because I'm not really into that. But I love that idea that they were just everyday objects that became mystical. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, like reading the tea leaves, it's an everyday object, but if you've got the skill and the time, you can get so much information out of it. What about you?
Well, it doesn't matter whether the deck was created for these purposes and included the esoteric symbolism that we see in the deck, whether that was on purpose or whether it was just developed later. And, you know, the modern idea is that the deck was created somewhere around the late 1300s to the early 1400s, because as you said, the Visconti deck, I forget the exact date, but it's like 1420 something was the first, you know, like full deck that we have. And we know that they were commissioned by wealthy families, and we know that they were used for a bridge-like game, Tarochi. Tarok, it's called in some country, you know, it's a different name in each country, you know, and it means trumps because you basically have the playing card deck and then the suit of trumps is added, which is the major arcana, and these cards trump each other and trump other cards during the game, playing of the game. And then Trifoni, and we get the word tarot because the French, that's what they call it. That's their word for that is tarot. And it's not tarot. And it's not, I've heard so many different pronunciations. The T is silent because it's French, folks. It's tarot.
Yeah, yes.
Now, some people say tarot, some people say tarot. and I think either one of those is fine, but some of the other ones, pronunciations I've heard are just out of this world. But the truth, the real truth, because you have the people going way to one extreme and the people going to the other extreme. And the truth is actually more in the middle. At least it is to me from, my study. So when I say tarot myths and mysteries, okay, some of the mysteries and the myths built around them was where the deck came from. As you just eloquently described, the elements of the deck, including numerological associations and the elements and a lot of
Kabbalistic, yeah,
and the archetypes and everything, they go way back into antiquity, thousands and thousands, if not 10,000 years. I know, geometry and sacred geometry and numerology. The reason why I start off my course talking about sacred geometry and numerology before I start talking about tarot is because it all goes back to that, and that goes back to 10,000 years ago, probably longer. Now, the myths that get built up around this is that it came from Atlantis.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones. The other big one is it came from ancient Egypt. Even though there's like no evidence of that at all, but
if you look at things like you can kind of see a little bit of that. Things like the Empress card and everything. Isis is often depicted sat upon a throne like that, and that's where the Madonna myth comes from, with Madonna seated with the baby Jesus on her lap or sometimes on her breast. It was Isis, and this is where my Egyptology falls apart on this very moment. Was it Osiris was her son? But that image of Isis sat upon the throne and sometimes feeding her son, sort of predates Christianity, predates the tarot. So you can kind of see, I really want to say, yeah, there might be something in elements of ancient Egyptian knowledge as carried through in the tarot, but there's no evidence for it apart from circumstantial.
Yeah, and, in later depictions, like the Rider-Waite deck goes back to 1910, and Waite specifically designed his Empress that, not the Empress, the High Priestess that way, and literally has the moon and a Isis-looking headdress on. But that wasn't until 1910. Going way, way back, the first decks, you didn't see the Egyptian influence quite as much, and it was brought up more in the late 1700s into the 1800s with the folks that were already into Kabbalah, and some of the other esoteric beliefs systems, and so they read that into the tarot. But
there was elements of Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucians, wasn't there, and that kind of thing, all sort of mixed in there in the 20th century.
Yes, but these myths that it came from the Atlanteans or it came from the Egyptians, I just don't see it, and there's also no evidence for it. That's the
key thing. Yeah,
that's the main key thing. However, so we've gone way too far the other direction. So it started out with these crazy myths when tarot was first brought into the public eye to a larger group of people from where it was before, and people started to use it for divination, and they started talking about these myths, the Atlantean myth and Egypt, and there was lots and lots of them, As they studied the deck more, what's the word for it? scientifically. I don't want to use the science, but you know,
more
with an educated eye. I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Objectively.
You know, as you actually study the evidence, you know, you see that that's not true, and the deck, you know, comes from maybe late 1300s, early 1400s. But then an interesting thing has happened. We've all gone the opposite direction now, where the deck was created only for tarocchi, only for a bridge-like trick-taking game. And that's all it was created for.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else to the deck, and everything else believed about the deck came later. And they show this because the writings about tarot show that they didn't talk about divination or any other use for the deck besides playing cards till the late 1700s and then into the 1800s. But this is going way too far, folks. You see, the truth of the matter is, if you look down the middle, there's no evidence of either way, either direction. Yeah. So the people that say, I know where the tarot came from, I've looked into it, the deck was created for a game in the 1400s. They can't actually say that because there is no evidence, there is nothing written down, nothing left over from when the deck was created, the first decks. I shouldn't say the deck because there is no the deck.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but the first decks, there is no information available, no evidence of how and why it was created. Yes, it was adopted and used for games. And yes, the only evidence we have, the earliest evidence we have of it being used for divination is the late 1700s. That doesn't mean it wasn't used for divination before the late 1700s. In addition, it doesn't prove anything about why the deck and who created it. Who created the first deck? So, you know, when you talk about mysteries, this is like the ultimate mystery, which is very interesting because the fictionalized account is what Gwendolyn has in The Fortune Teller.
Yes, I know. I'm finding it really hard not to talk about her book, Head of the Show.
The first book. And yes, it's completely fictional, of course, you know, but it does make you think after reading the book. It makes you. But, you know, my argument has always been.
No spoilers for Ruth there, because I know she hasn't finished it.
Well, and we have to wait till Gwendolyn comes on the show to fill you guys in all the way, right? But my argument has always been that, you know, lack of evidence does not allow you, therefore, to come to certain conclusions, which some of the big names in tarot, just look on the net, you know, they've all swung to this, oh, yes, tarot, you know, I've been doing it for 50 years, but it's just a deck of cards that was created for games. And don't get me wrong, if that's all it was created for, it doesn't matter. It still works, you know, for what we use it for. However, with the lack of evidence, you can't make these conclusions. However, what you can do is you can pick apart the deck. You can look at the symbology. You can look at the structure of the deck. It's like you have to be a forensic police scientist, you know. You got to CSI the deck to actually.
I like that.
When you CSI the deck, what you find is that, okay, the Atlantean thing is a myth. The Egyptian thing is a myth. However, when you look at the symbolism, you look at the structure of the deck, you look at the numerology, what you start to find is all of these elements, archetypes, and the elements that are in the deck, including the elements, as symbols for the elements, as well as the archetypes, the numbers, and then the geometrical structure of the deck, then you're able to start to CSI it. And you realize that these elements that make up this deck go back as far as human knowledge goes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, who would put that together just to do a game?
Yeah, there is that. Absolutely.
Can you answer that can you answer that for me? Okay, it was only made for a game. Then why? Why are there 5 suits? Why exactly 5 that match up perfectly with the 4 physical elements and then the quintessential 5th element, which come to us from the Platonic solids, which come to us from sacred geometry? Why are there 78 cards?
Yeah.
Why is there not 80 cards, 86 cards, 50 cards, 44 cards, 72 cards? Why is there 78, exactly 78 cards? Exactly 78. Why? Why? If your concept about this is true, explain to me that. Why is the major arcana, which, there's evidence of playing cards, a 4-suit deck going back way before tarot cards. So obviously the major arcana was added, and this is the trumps that were used in the playing of the Tarocchi. But why are there 22 of them? Which is a master number, the master builder number. Why 22? Why not 13 or 11 or 62? Yeah. I mean, I know I'm being crazy here, but they can't answer that. But if you CSI it, then things start to come into focus, because in sacred geometry, when you look at the flower of life and the structure that's created called Metatron's cube, you find that Metatron's cube is formed by exactly 78 lines. It takes 78 lines to form Metatron's cube within the flower of life in sacred geometry. 78, folks.
Familiar number.
Yes. 78 cards. 7 plus 8 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6. Did I do that right, Suzanne?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you did, yes.
6 is the number of balance and harmony in numerology. I mentioned 22 major arcanas. There's 56 cards in the minor part of the deck, the minor arcana, or the pip cards. 56. 5 plus 6 is 11.
11.
The master illuminator number. If you add the minor arcana, 56, reduced to 11, add that to the major arcana, 22 cards, you get 33. The master teacher, master healer number. Is all this coincidence? I don't think so, folks. I just don't think so. So you can CSI, and there's a lot more to it than that, but we need to get to reversals before the end of the show. But
15 minutes to go before the end of the show, yeah.
Yes, and we'll be able to fit it in, trust me. But it's just a fascinating topic because, we had these wild ideas about where the deck came from in the past. And now we've gone the full extreme to the opposite side of the spectrum, that it's only a deck of cards. It was created for playing cards and nothing else. You can't say that, folks. I don't care how much research you do.
Done, yeah.
There is no physical evidence that tells us who created the first deck, why they created the first deck. So if you CSI the deck, and that's all we've got. All we've got is the deck. Yeah. That's all we've got to look at. So you have to look at what evidence we have. The evidence we have is the earliest deck we know of is the Visconti from the early 1400s. There was a letter that mentioned the purchasing, the commissioning of cards. I think it was late 1300s, but it wasn't ever proven that they were talking about a tarot deck, But that's all the evidence there is. So, and so, you know, lack of evidence does not prove a point. So what do you have to do? You have to look at the evidence. The only evidence we have is the deck. CSI the deck, folks. Do the research. Research numerology. Research sacred geometry. Research the archetypes. And then, you know, follow that trail back into, it actually does, this is the interesting part. It's not what most people think of with Egypt, but it actually, the trail does go back into Egypt, into the Middle East, Persia. That's where, you know, our numbers come from, where numerology comes from, the symbolism, and you can actually follow the Silk Trail all the way into India and into Tibet, and the same symbols that appear on the minor arcana, you're going to find all the way back through the Silk Trail.
Yeah.
Through Persia and all the way back. And then if you follow the numerology, you know, Pythagoras was a captive in Persia and Babylon, it was called, and he learned a lot of this, you know, numerology, numbers and sacred geometry from the Magi in Persia, and then brought that back to Greece. And then he set up his school, the Pythagorean school. We get the Pythagorean theorem from that. We get sacred geometry. We get numerology all from that. It all traces back. And then, of course, that information obviously is a lot older. The Magi go back, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 years, but then we've seen images, for instance, the Flower of Life dating back 10,000 years, folks.
Yeah.
You know, so whoever put the deck together knew what they were doing. It wasn't by accident. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the number of cards we have. We wouldn't have the structure we have. We wouldn't have the symbolism we have, and we wouldn't have the archetypes we have in the deck. Just CSI it. So that's what I wanted to talk about, which we never got to the last show we were doing on myths and mysteries. That's what I meant about the mysteries part of myths and mysteries. Now, to reverse or not. Okay. This is actually quite a big topic as well, because there are so many different... We might have to stretch this into next week's show, folks.
I think we may have to play around with our schedule a little bit. But it's one of those questions that as tarot readers, it always comes up. Should I, whether you're with somebody that's learning it, or if you're, sat with a client or a friend or whatever that you're reading the cards for, do I need to make some of them upside down? And like I said, when whenever you buy a deck, you always get the upright and reversed meanings. And I think if you're learning the tarot, the handy thing is that you can maybe flip some of them upside down. Now, I don't do it because I'm a little bit of a neat freak and I like all my cards the right way up. But I know some people, they do literally cut it in half and then sort of flip one set around and shuffle them in that way.
And that's how you can create reverse. If all your cards are upright, like mine always are, you turn the deck this way.
Yeah. And there is an element of that, because synchronicity will still mean that the cards that need to be reversed will be in the half of the deck that is reversed, and will therefore, if they are selected for the spread, will come out reversed. With regards to shuffling, I know some people struggle to physically shuffle the cards when you're doing reading, in which case they tend to sort of just put them down on the table and mess them around. And again, that's absolutely fine. You will naturally then get some cards that are reversed in that.
The chaos method.
I love the chaos method. And even though I'm a neat freak, I kind of like the chaos method as well. Just the randomness of it. But I know we've discussed in the past, haven't we, Jax, about why we don't reverse. And I think the number one reason is that with a bit of practice, you don't need the cards to be upside down to understand that within the context of the reading, you're actually looking at the, I'm not going to say negative aspects, because some of the cards that are deemed negative, therefore if it's reversed, they take on a more optimistic slant. But I'm going to say the less favourable aspects
Okay.
of the cards. You just know intuitively through your experience and through the bigger picture, the greater message in the cards. You know which elements of that card that you're picking out. So in terms of reversals, do I physically turn my cards upside down? No, just because I'm a bit of a weirdo and I like everything to be neat and the right way up. And I know you're the same way, and I use weirdo as a term of affection about both of us. But
I have practical reasons why too, but
well, yeah,
I'll give mine after you though. I want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're looking at when you're actually doing a reading, you don't. The difference between, and I was told this really early on when I was learning the tarot, the difference between a good reader and a fantastic reader is basically anybody can go through your little white book and memorize the card meanings. But what makes a great tarot reader is years of training, years of experience, and tons of intuition. So in actual fact, what you're actually reading from the cards may bear no resemblance to what the author intended that picture to mean, but it's what that card means to you and to your client, more importantly, at that point of the reading. So you sort of ignore the little white book meanings, in which case you pick up the strands of whether it's this aspect of the card or it's the slightly less favourable aspect of the card, or it's a realisation that right now your journey could go either way. It's that dynamic that you're getting at. And those are the reversal meanings. I would always say to somebody when you're buying a deck, do look at them. I know you said you just tear those pages out, but do understand what the less favourable aspects of the cards mean, the reverse meanings. I think we all need to understand what those are, because they're not necessarily the direct opposite, are they? So it's kind of learning the full meaning of the cards, the whole range of emotions and sort of psychological archetypes that card represents. Then during the reading, where is that card in relation to your question? How is it laid out with the other cards? Tells you whether it is 100% favourable, 100% unfavourable, or more often than not, it's somewhere on that sliding scale between them, isn't it? So what you were saying, Dax, about you have a more practical reason for not reversing.
Well, yes, and also aesthetics, like you too, but but I think it's important to go back that, you know, this goes along with all the myths and mysteries that we were talking about, that it's all personal choice. You know, you have to decide whether you want to work that way or not. And no one should tell you that you must use reversals. Likewise, no one should tell you don't use reversals.
Yeah.
I don't use reversals. Susanne doesn't, but we don't tell people not to use reversals. You know, it doesn't mean you're not going to give a good tarot reading. You know, some of the best readers use reversals. So that's important to lay that foundation right there, that, you know, with all these things that we're talking about, it's personal choice. You got to decide for yourself. Just like the meanings of the cards, you have to decide for yourself. Yes, there's some themes, and as decks are created by different artists, they're going for different, you know, symbolism and themes in the different decks. That's why I like decks, and I like collecting decks, and they're pretty, but I don't necessarily use them. Because I, way back, you know, when I learned tarot, I created a language in my subconscious mind based on the symbols of the particular deck that I was using at the time, which was Waite Smith. And because of that, even when I use Ciro Marchetti's Legacy of the Divine Tarot,
which is a beautiful deck.
Here's an example. I'll use a deck like that with clients because it's pretty.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm in person, if I'm like this with you on Skype or Zoom or something like that, or Facebook video chat, I'm not actually going to be using a deck like that. I'm going to be using the Waite Smith. In fact, I might not even be using a deck at all. I might be using a computer program on my screen as I'm looking at you. The cards are coming up right here on the screen for me, and I really like that. But that actually leads me back to the first inklings about, because when I was studying in the very, very beginning, eons ago, I was looking at reversals, right? Everybody does. But this was around the same time that the first computer programs for doing tarot on your computer, we didn't have iPhones then. And we didn't have pads, but we had computer programs coming out, and I started looking at these early programs that came out. And even to this day, there's a lot of settings with these different programs. You can tell it to put all the cards up face down, or put all the cards up face up, shuffle in certain ways and things like that. And some of the options on the computer programs was you can tell it to use reversals or not use reversals. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
It mostly went to the subconscious mind. I wasn't necessarily consciously thinking about this immediately, but then it came to the surface. So, but it stuck with me. It's like, why would you shut it off? Or, it's like if you're supposed to use reversals, then it wouldn't be an option. And in my convoluted subconscious mind way of thinking, that's, what I was thinking. There was another big one, though, Susanne, is that not only could you switch it on or switch it off, you could tell it the exact percentage. If have 50% of the deck come up as reversals, have 25% of the deck come up as reversals. That really threw me there. Because then I said to myself, this is contrived.
Yeah.
This is contrived. Then there was the aesthetic part. At about the same time that I was musing about all this with the computer programs, I was just, I keep picking the cameras up here. I'm using a different camera too. I'm looking at the card. A card is a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
The artist would literally kill you if you had a piece of artwork and put it on your wall upside down. No, that's the art. This is not the art. This is the art. Okay. No art is meant to be upside down ever, and it makes no sense, to me, and it's like I said, personal.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah.
It just makes no sense to me. But there's practical aspects to this. The fact that it's so, I know it's contrived, and the reason it's contrived is you have to physically flip the deck and shuffle like the chaos method, or in some way to create reversals. If I turn half the deck upside down and shuffle, 50% of the deck is going to be reversals. Okay, I put the deck down, a new client comes in, I pick the deck up again. Uh-oh, wait a minute. The same cards that potentially will come up as reversals will still be coming up as reversals. We'll never get, if the sun card is in there upside down, we're not going to get a right side up sun card. This is actually one thing, Susanne, where the computer programs have it over the physical deck. Because when you tell the computer program to have 50% or 25% or 10% or whatever, 15, 20, 25, 35%, whatever you want, a percentage of the pulls to come up as a reversal, it also is using an algorithm to do that. And so the cards are neither upside down or right side up. They're just the cards. And depending on the algorithm will be whether a card will come up reversed. But that same card that comes up reversed, in the very next reading with the next shuffle, and when I say shuffle, I'm pushing a button that shuffles it, and then I draw again. The very same card has the same potential to come up again at the same, what's the word I'm looking for, chance to come up again and to come up upright.
Yeah.
Because it's a computer program, it can come up either way. With the physical deck, you have to take the deck after the reading, turn all the cards right side up, shuffle, turn half the deck again, and shuffle again in order to ever get...
But then I suppose, playing devil's advocate, yeah, if you're doing, say you're doing a string of readings for people, and you split your deck in half, turn it upside down, shuffle, do the reading. Next client sits down, you take your deck that's all shuffled up, some are upright, some are reversed. You split that in half and turn one half of those upside. So actually, yeah, you will over time get completely randomized upright and reversed cards.
That's possible. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, yeah. But I know a lot of people
I just don't like the messiness of it.
I know a lot of people reorder their deck, though, after each reading.
See, and that's what I used to do when I was starting out. I would sit there. In fact, I was so picky. I would sit there after every reading and turn them, not only turn them the right way up, but put them in their order again.
Oh, yeah, which is totally insane. That's totally insane.
I'm like, oh, this is just too much hard work. If the cards are going to come out, they're going to come out regardless. So I stopped turning the cards upside down, but I do now allow them to just stay in their randomness. I'm not quite like that.
By the way, we should say the opposite. For the people that don't want to use reversals, you can still use the chaos method and bring all the cards back together. Now, you lay your cards out, and if one of them is upside down, just turn it.
Exactly,
which is what I didn't mean anything.
I just flip it.
Just turn it. Same thing with shuffling. If you don't do the chaos method, if you do a rifling, you know, my cards are all up and down the correct way right now. So if I hold the deck like this and do an overhand like that, they're going to stay up and down. If I take the deck like this, cut it in half, and then rifle them together, they're still all going to be upright. So you can shuffle to keep them all upright. But if you use a method where you do get reversals, just turn the card in the spread. You know, that's what a lot of people do. And, you know, way back then when I was looking at the programs and I saw that contrivance, and then I was, you know, playing around with the deck and, well, how do you even get a reversal? See, that's the other thing, too, is like when I started out, I was like, I can't even get reversals because I shuffle like a Vegas dealer. You don't. It's a very, very accidental thing if you get a reversal, right? So, you know, I had to look at how people were doing it, and I found out, oh, you know, well, there's the chaos method. Some people turn half the card, and I'm like, that's so contrived. You know.
But then, there's also if a card falls out while you're shuffling it or your client is shuffling it, if it lands face up, you read it as is. If it lands face down, you read the reversal. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
There's
different ways, and it really is about finding what works.
So then I did some, you know, research and started asking people, you know, by then the Tarot Guild was going 2004, and I was fortunate to have contact with, you know, many tarot experts and authors, and I would ask them about this, you know. We should start doing this on the show every time we have someone on. So do you use it? So why? You know, and when you talk to them, you find out there's like all these different ideas and reasons. And most of it was because, you know, someone told them that that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, or they read it in a book. They read it in a book somewhere. You know, things like this. And when you really look into it, you know, how far back does the evidence go that reversals were even ever used? Not very far. It's more of a modern contrivance.
It's a bit like Wicca. It's kind of a 20th century thing. Exactly. Once it started getting written down and mass published, it sort of becomes a thing, and then it becomes law. And you know, it's just the way it's done.
People weren't doing readings in the 1400s, you know, using reversals, folks. You know, this is a modern thing. You know, just like people that think that the Waite Smith deck is the original tarot deck when it was not even created till 1910. You know. Yeah. Exactly. So, the thing is that, I think reversals can be useful, but then I also can see where they can, from going to another practical side of it, is that it can actually take away from the reading. What it's doing is it's taking away from the spectrum of meaning.
Mm.
If you're a hard, upright, reverse person, you're going to train your mind to go black, white, instead of the actual thing, which is a huge spectrum of meaning from one end to the other, all within the same card, and for the different symbols too. So you don't want to set yourself up that way, because when you're learning tarot, you're actually creating in your mind, in your subconscious mind, a new language, because the way our brains work is in pictures and images. We don't see words, we see images. If I write M-O-M on a piece of paper and show it to you, and you read it, mother, you'll see a picture of your mother, or someone else's mother. You won't see the word again pop up in your head. It's, and being a clinical hypnotherapist, I've studied the mind. That's how it works. It's images. So you are creating this symbolic language, and that's why one tarot reader's meaning for a card or a specific symbol in the card is going to be different from another tarot reader's, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
yeah.
There is no set meanings, folks. It's the language that you decide for your subconscious mind, and then once you've implanted that, as you do readings, it'll work. Even if somebody else is, let's say another reader is looking over your shoulder and it's like, oh, no, that does not mean that. It's like, no, it means what it means to the person doing the reading.
Yeah. And I've had sort of clients a long time ago when I was, sitting there and just sitting in pubs and stuff, reading cards for packets of chips and stuff, fries to Americans.
I gotta start doing that. I need some free drinks and stuff,
Yeah, exactly. When I was learning, and I did have one woman. She was actually somebody out. Well, I say woman. She was about 19. She was somebody I used to work with, and she asked me to do a tarot reading for her. And every time I laid out, I was doing the thing. I'm laying out the cards. I'm going through the reading. And she's going, no, that's wrong. That's not what that means. And I'm like, no, if you were reading your deck, it would mean that to you. But this is my deck, and this is what they're saying to me.
Exactly.
I actually said, do you want me to just stop now? This is not working, is it? Because it's the tarot reading works because it is a conversation between your conscious and subconscious mind using the medium of these cards to unlock those messages for you. And therefore, that's why I tell people, really, the little white book is just an attractive filler to keep your cards neat in the box. It really doesn't matter that much in terms of what you think the cards mean. And that's kind of, I think if we were to say one thing to kind of summarize with reversals, it is whatever feels right for you at that time in that reading. And don't let anybody else tell you otherwise.
But we've talked a lot about not using reversals. Let's talk about using reversals for a second. And this is what I'm going to say. First of all, if you're going to use reversals, I highly recommend that chaos method we talked about. So you're going to want to protect your cards. You're going to want to have a clean spread cloth that you lay down on the table, preferably a fairly large, maybe like a card-sized table, a card table, which is ironic that you're using cards. Anyway, just lay the cloth out, spread the deck out face down, all the cards, push them far, far out, and then just move them all around like this.
Mess them around.
Bring the deck back into, a deck like this, into a stack. And then you're going to get some reversals. And it's then the least contrived
Yeah.
version of using reversals. The whole turn, well, I'll turn half the deck upside down and all this stuff. There's the law of probabilities. I don't even know how to describe, how that is. It's just, for what you're trying to do to get reversals, it's just not accurate. The closest.
Well, I would say as long as your cards aren't in their proper order,
Mm-hmm.
the laws of synchronicity say if you're using reversals and you are shuffling the cards and you are splitting the cards and turning half them upside down, then the cards that you need to be reversed will come out.
Right. But where I was going with it is, at least with the chaos method, we did that, pulled the cards in. Now some of them are reversed. You do a reading, and so some of the cards come up reversed. Okay. Now when I go to do another reading, I might shuffle the cards, put them back down on the table, push them out again, go like that. Now the same card that was upside down has an equal chance of being right side up.
Mm.
So it's, and I like the reason why I call it the chaos method is because, order, and whether they're upside down or not, order comes out of chaos. So you have the cards chaotically on the table, pushing them all around, and then you pull them into order, out of chaos order. And each time you do that method of shuffling the deck, I guess technically it's not shuffling, but it's...
Well, it is. You're still shuffling them together.
And at least, if you're going to do reversals, at least that method covers that aspect where there's an equal chance to get the card either reversed or upside down. Whereas other methods of creating reversals they're too contrived. It's going to mess with the law of probabilities. You're not getting the can't think of what the words I'm trying to actually use here, but you're not getting the randomness that you need to do. So to really use synchronicity, you have to have a randomized system. And if you decide to use reversals, that's fine, but you need something like the chaos method. The other thing is to use a computer program or an app on your phone, and you tell it to give you reversals, and then you're going to get a very synchronistic, very randomized, probability-based possibility of getting a reversal or an upright of any of the 78 cards. So that's step one. And step two is that, even people that use reversals will tell you it doesn't mean the opposite of the upright meaning necessarily. There's many ways to read reversal. One of the best ways that I like, and it works really well with the with the Rider-Smith or Waite-Smith deck with the symbols, because if you have an upright card and the meaning of the card, and then you turn it upside down, what does that do visually? What I like about it is this method is, so he's holding all these swords, that he's gathered or won in battle, right? Now the card's upside down. What happens to the swords? They all fall down.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So using gravity, if you turn that card upside down, what happens to the symbols in the card? And that'll give you some really good imagery and reversal thoughts to use for meanings. So he's lost all the swords, as an example.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
What about you? Any things, any tips on? Cause it's hard when you don't use reversal to give tips on.
It is hard, but what I would say is I just hold with synchronicity. So if you are going to use, and this was my experience, to be honest, when I did them, if you are going to use reversals, just as you have faith that the cards that need to come out in your tarot reading will be the cards that come out, so as you are reversing them, whichever method you choose, even if you do just cut the deck in half and turn them upside down and then shuffle them, the synchronicity will still work. It will still bring the cards reversed that you need to have reversed in your spread. Likewise, you might have half your deck upside down and they're still all upright when you do the reading. Excuse me. So it's all down to the uniqueness of the reading. And I suppose if I had to give one tip, it would be, please don't waste your life turning all your cards upright again. Yeah. Just leave them messed up and shuffled with some upright and some reversed, knowing that next time you do a reading, 50% of those cards, thereabouts, because you're never going to cut them perfectly in half, but half that deck is still a mixture of roughly 50 upright and 50 reverse, which you're then reversing again. So come around and the synchronicity will work whichever methods you want to use.
Yes, and if you don't have the physical room to do the chaos method, I understand that. One way to do it a little bit better then is you cut the deck in half and then you cut those halves in half. And
that's another way of doing it.
Take two of them and reverse it and then shuffle together. Do your readings, and then when you go to shuffle the deck again, do the same process. Flip them, and shuffle them together, and then the more you
trying a few different methods and seeing what works for you.
What works for you? Yeah,
absolutely.
And the other thing I wanted to say is, if you're going to do a lot of readings in a row, like if you're doing a show like us, and you might have several callers, you don't need to shuffle the deck after each caller. Now, I actually do, because
I do.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm not using this deck. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm using the computer program. I push the button and it shuffles. And usually, as we bring on a new caller and they're talking, I'm hitting the button a couple, 2 or 3 times. And I'm saying the name, like for instance, Jacqueline there is in the chat room, and if Jacqueline was getting a reading, I would be saying, as she was talking and you were talking to her, I'd be in the background going, Jacqueline, 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 just hitting the button and shuffling the deck electronically. Now, if I'm using a physical deck, let's say you're at a fair or something like that, you're going to do a bunch of readings, like 5-minute quick readings or 10-minute quick readings. I shuffle the deck really, really well. And as I'm shuffling, I ask the tarot to put the cards in the order that I need to draw them from, one at a time, or however many that I need to draw for every client I'm going to sit down with.
Yeah.
So I never shuffle the deck again. I just shuffle. I have this thing that I call cutting to the heart of the matter that I like to do, is I cut the deck, and the card under here is the heart of the matter. And I put the deck together again like this, and I start reading off the top of the heart of the matter is an important card. I usually put that to the side, do the reading like I would normally do, and about 98% of the time I find that all I ever needed was the heart of the matter card.
Yeah.
It actually explains everything, even after going through all these other cards and stuff like that. But so I'll shuffle, I'll cut the deck, I'll lay the deck here on top of, and by the way, I always have my deck on top of my, can't find the camera, my bag, on top of the bag to protect them, and I start pulling off the top, pulling off the top, and then the next client sits down, pull off the top, because synchronicity, because I requested that in the very beginning, no matter how many cards I pull for each client, as they sit down, the exact cards that were meant to come up are going to come up.
Yeah.
And if you have that in your mind, it works every time. Yeah. So that's it on reverse or not. Does anybody want to reverse now, or has anybody who uses reversals said, I don't think I'm going to use reversals anymore? I don't think any of that's going to happen. If you're using reversals, you're going to use reversals.
Yeah, if it works for you, it works for you.
Yes. If you don't use reversals, you're not going to start using reversals. Simple as that, So what
works for me? Yeah, exactly.
Works for me, yeah. And I totally don't use them at all anymore. But I used to be kind of in the same school as where Ruth kind of is now, a decade or so ago, where I wouldn't use them. But if they came up, they came up. And I would, just like the cards falling out during shuffling. The deck is trying to tell you something. And it's important to note that card. And when I would get a reversal in a spread, I wouldn't use traditional reversal meanings or look at the card in any different way. What I would do is, okay, so I do a spread, let's say 7 cards or whatever, and one of them's reversed. And I'm like, of course, my first thought is, how the hell did that get reversed? Because I don't do reversals. But, it could happen somehow in the shuffling. If you get a reversed card, then I just look at that. It's like, that card is significant. But then I turn it right side up and I use the right side up meanings. But I put more emphasis on that particular card. Mm-hmm. So that's another way of using reversals. Yeah. And a lot of people use reversals for yes-no answers. Reversal, reverse no, upright yes. I like using a little bit more complicated of a yes-no because you get more information, and that's another show.
That's another show, yeah.
we need to end here, but before we go, I just want to remind you all, if you're a member of the Guild, June 1st, class number 1, Tarot by the Numbers course. Remember, it comes free with the Tarot Guild membership. So go over to tarotguild.org/join and join the Guild today. Also, if you are in my Angelic Numerology and Tarot course from the International Association of Angel Practitioners, Angelic Realms, the first several classes of the course is the bonus tarot classes that I promised all of you. So you're going to be able to join us for the first few classes. And then if you decide to join the Guild, you can continue with us live through the whole course. And it's going to be 11 modules. It's going to take us, maybe, I don't want to put a number on it, but 12, 13, 14 classes all together. We're going to do 1 or 2 a week. It's not going to take all summer, but, yeah, but it's going to be a lot of fun because we're doing it live. And, for those that took my Angelic Numerology and Tarot course, it was all pre-recorded. And even though we, hold teleconferences for the students, it's so much nicer being able to be there live, and ask questions right then and there. And so I hope a lot of you will join us live if you're in my Angelic Numerology and Tarot course. If you're not, go over and join the Guild. You get it free as part of your membership. The cost of a couple lattes a month, or save $41, save 35% off the monthly membership by getting the annual membership for just $78. tarotguild.org/join. And then June 6th, next week, what deck to get.
Yes.
Plus your calls. We hope we will get some calls or people coming on cam and do some mini readings. Don't forget that exclusive interview with Janet Boyer. Ask Janet Boyer anything on June 7th. Okay, so those are 2 things coming up right now. Great reason to join the Guild there and get in on all that, right?
Absolutely, come and join us.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's it for this weekend. Can't wait to chat with you next week. One last thing I want to leave everybody with, Susanne, is tell us what you want us to talk about on the shows.
Yes.
I mean, we have a lot of great topics lined up already. We have a lot of great guests lined up already. But we love your input. If you have burning questions, let us know. I think we need to do some kind of open lines.
Yeah.
But send us on Facebook. Get a hold of Suzanne or myself. There's the Tarot Guild group. There's Tarot Insider on Facebook. In fact, that's probably the easiest, best thing.
The easiest way, yeah.
Yeah. Just go to facebook.com/Tarot Insider, and you'll see the big blue send message button. Click that and send Suzanne and I a message. We both will see that. And let us know, I would love to hear from this deck creator or this tarot book author or this tarot expert. Or I have, these burning questions about tarot or numerology that I would love for you to discuss on the show. Let us know.
Indeed.
Okay. Until next week. Thanks, Suzanne. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.